Welcome to the Cleaning Up Business Podcast. My name's Chris Guilfoyle and I'm going to be your host. In every episode, we're hoping to bring you industry leaders from a wide variety of service sectors, disruptors within their industry, and day-to-day entrepreneurs with some business and life lessons for you guys to take away. Let's jump in to today's episode.
I became a stay-at-home mum claiming benefits. It was awful. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I was a failure.
Because you've gone from ironing clothes to just under 4.5 million in revenue. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to scale a cleaning company that big.
I remember getting into the room and I spent an hour on the floor crying. I have to let go. I have to trust people, but I don't trust anyone.
What was that process like? Tell me a little bit about that.
Do you want me to be honest? Because I was 36 when I sold. I changed my life, changed my kids' lives, and other people can do that as well.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cleaning Up Business Podcast. As you can see from my surroundings, I am not in our usual studio. I am down in Wales. I have a female cleaning business entrepreneur with me. I have Rayner Mayers, and thank you to Rayner for letting us stay in her fantastic property. It's lovely. Beautiful views, as you can see from behind us. So, Rayner, as with all of our guests, we always go all the way back to the start before your foray into the cleaning industry. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey prior to starting your cleaning business.
Yeah. So thank you very much, first of all, for asking me to be a part of your podcast. I do follow you and I think it's amazing. So keep it up. Just where did my journey begin? So I left school. Well, I was in school doing my GCSEs and I remember feeling not too great and I thought, right, okay, I might be pregnant, but I'm not too sure. So I went to Super Savers, whoever remembers Super Savers, bought the cheapest pregnancy test and did the pregnancy test, and I was 15, found out I was having a baby. I had absolutely nothing. I was still in school. And I was petrified in telling my parents. I just thought, I'm doing my GCSEs. What does that actually look like for me in life? And a few people suggested after I told them that, well, is it the right time to have a baby? Or what is life going to look like? You've ruined your life. And collecting my GCSEs, a teacher said to me, and I'll never forget it, because I think it's these moments where people say something to you that sometimes you hold that as a motivating factor to drive you forward. And she just said, oh, well, we all know what was on your mind now, because at this point I was 6 months pregnant. So I had a lovely big bump walking in to collect my GCSEs. And she just basically said, you've ruined your life. And I think I kind of carried that for a little bit. I think I carried the disappointment that I thought I brought to my family, the shame. I mean, we're talking 21 years ago. So my grandparents were not the happiest. And they just brought, I think, a lot of shame around being 15 and pregnant.
Yeah. When you left school, was you academic anyway? Was you good when you was in school, or did you not really enjoy being there?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, school, there wasn't really any subjects in school that give me a sense of enjoyment or pleasure. We were forced to do things that, sewing, DT, drawing, art. I still can't even draw an apple to this day, yet I'd have a bollocking off my teacher for not being able to draw an apple or draw a building in the correct way. And, there's so many things that I wasn't good at in school. I left school with one GCSE, and that's geography. Yeah. So every other GCSE was D, E, F, G. And I pretty much, for me, I seen that as I failed pretty much every GCSE. Yeah. So I wasn't academic at all. I didn't enjoy what I was forced to do in school. And I don't think there was anything outside of that, like within the school, what's the word I'm looking for? In what they teach you in school, there was nothing really that was for me. I used to sell my dinner tickets for 50 pence and I'd have a row for selling my dinner tickets, you know, or selling cans of pop and things. And I think, you know, if you're entrepreneurial, that's in you from a young age where it's like, how do I make money? How do I'll sell this. You have a row then for selling something.
Yeah, of course. So it seems like you had that entrepreneurial mindset. Obviously, being pregnant at such a young age, you know, usually I ask guests, so what was your aspirations when you left school and what did you go into? What did you do? I'm assuming obviously you come out and had your child, but what sort of happened? What was in between there? Did you go into employment? Did you stay at home with it? What was next?
Yeah, I stayed at home. I became a stay-at-home mum claiming benefits, and it was awful. I was on benefits. I was having milk tokens. I would go to antenatal, or not antenatal classes. I'd go to see the midwife after my son was born, and just even from the new mums in the sessions that I'd go to, they'd all be maybe, you know, late 20s, early 30s, and the grandmothers would be there, and I'm there with my baby at 16, just feeling this whole sense of, and I carried that for years afterwards, a sense of just failure. And I was on benefits, which made me feel 10 times worse. And then I got pregnant. I didn't learn the first time. I got pregnant again with my second child at the age of 18. So I thought, right, okay, she was born. And after she was born, I just thought, I can't do this. I've got 2 children on benefits. It's no life. It's absolutely
Was it a struggle?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd be having to ask my dad. It was sometimes a choice between, even though sometimes people look at people who are on benefits and think they're living the high life, I suppose it depends on where they're spending the money.
Sure.
If they're spending it on beer and cigarettes as opposed to feeding the family, then okay, it might look like they're living the high life. But the reality is it's not. Well, when I was claiming benefits, it was a struggle. There'd be days where, you know, my sister would say, do you want to go to Oakwood Park, which is in West Wales? I couldn't afford to go. So my sister, who is 10 years older than me, had her own family, but she'd be paying to take me and my children to Oakwood Park. That's not really a satisfying feeling when you're a parent, thinking that you can't even, you know, take your kids out to theme parks or anywhere that's of enjoyment, because it was a constant battle and a struggle. So when my daughter was 6 months old, I just said, I've got to get a job.
Yeah, enough.
And I went into care work, and I did community care. I absolutely loved it. And I think, looking at where my career's led me, care work is out in the community. I was leaving the house at 6:30 in the morning, never home before, if I was on an afternoon shift, never home before 11 p.m. Well, that fits in perfectly with what the cleaning industry is like, you know? It's not office job 9 till 5, very kind of structured in your job role. It is, Mrs. Jones has come out of hospital. Can you slot her in? This one's over here. Can you cancel that one? It was constant, repetitive change, because you're dealing with elderly adults or vulnerable. Things happen last minute. You've got to deal with whatever's thrown at you. So I did that for a number of years. But even doing the care job, I remember, I think my first pay was around about the £4.80 mark. Oh. So at £4.80 an hour. And even on that, I was paying for all my own fuel because it was community care. And yeah, I was out to the house for 16 hours, but only getting paid maybe 8 or 10, because we never got paid travelling time back then. I
think that's quite common in the care industry still, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah. I think it's sort of kind of under the radar. It's presumed that, well, you're not actually working. Well,
I'm not going to pay you.
I'm not going to pay you, but I am, because how do I travel then from this client's house to this client's house? Who pays for that time? Is that my donation to the company?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of similarities in the care industry. The way that it's operated and run kind of helped me when I went into the cleaning industry, because when things happen, I was used to it happening
anyway.
I mean, the end service was different, but the overall way that it runs, operates, employs people out in the community, people out on the road, it's very, very similar.
So you're in the care industry. It sounds like you enjoyed it, you know, and I suppose that's a good skill to have, because you're dealing with varying type of people all the time, different walks of life. Where did that spark come to then decide, actually, I'm going to start something on my own? Tell us a little bit about that story.
So that all stemmed from just being completely honest. I was still struggling, even though I was in work.
Yeah.
And I would pick up extra shifts. There was still an element of my income topped up by the benefits. Because I was a low earner. I was only able to work certain days and times, but I would then pick up extra shifts and where and when I could, mainly on the weekends. So the weekends I was out of the house 16 hours, Saturday, Sunday. So I didn't really have a social life anyway, because I was either working or being a mum, and my hours were very unsociable. I just I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I was a failure, and the way that my life had gotten to that point. I was still living life as what everyone said, teen mum on benefits, made nothing of herself. That's what I felt inside.
You've mentioned that a few times now. Was that a trauma to you? Was that something you it sounds like it's something you carried for a while. You mentioned about you being a failure, and clearly you're not now. Would you think this whole process because you wanted to prove everyone wrong?
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I was 23, so I run my cleaning company for 13 years, and I'd probably say for a huge chunk of that, even though I was successful, I'd still have that in my mind that I'm a failure. That nag, it took me years. I did NLP in 2018 because I wanted to try and understand the mind.
Yeah.
Why was I feeling that I was a failure when actually the results around me that I'd created from sheer hard work and dedicated my life to my business, why did I still feel that way? I struggled for years and years and years to understand. And it's how we view ourselves. It's the self-belief. It's the things we say to ourselves have a huge impact on our outer world that we see on our outer world. So even though somebody on the outside would look at your life and think, wow, you go out when you want, you do this, you go on holidays, you got a nice house. They see all of that. Yeah. What they don't see is the internal battle that you're fighting with every day.
I think most entrepreneurs suffer from that, don't they? I certainly do. I think I'm in a similar position of you. I was listening to a podcast recently, actually. I think because I had nothing to lose the early days, and now I'm sort of where I am, doing, as you say, you've got all them trappings of success externally. I think I suffer from the same sort of thing, that internal dialogue that, am I doing it right? Am I good enough? Am I going to lose everything? Because previously you had nothing, then you get to a situation where you've got everything, and then you panic about, am I going to lose that, or am I going to prove everyone right by not fulfilling the potential that you've clearly got over that now. Are you through that process, would you say, or is that still something you battle with?
I will say that I probably, since selling the business, I think I've done a lot more inner work. I've put things in place in my life now because I don't have that additional pressure from running the business, which anyone running a business will know. No matter how many staff you've got, either growing, starting, scaling a business, there's always challenges. I think because I've had that bit of even though the last 2 years have been turbulent, I've definitely had that space to really address those thoughts, really look at myself in the mirror. And I write a lot of things down. I think for me, when I write a lot of things down, I'm able to analyse and question and then cross it off and say, well, that's not true. There's no evidence. So that's one way that I process things.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the starting the cleaning business. Tell us about the initial idea, how it started. Yeah. And then we'll get into the detail of the growth of the company.
Yeah, I had this massive burning desire that I just couldn't, I would drive to my care job and I'd just be thinking, there's got to be more to life than this. I'm still having to ring my dad and say, Dad, can I borrow £5 to put fuel in the car? Even though I was working, and I just thought, there's got to be another way. And my parents had their own business. And then my father sold up when he was 45. They had a small little shop. And I think I was working as young as I was, helping him clean the fridges out, helping him all the things that he had in the shop. We were there as children, helping and assisting in the business. And when I was still working, had no money, and I thought, right, that's it. I'm gonna start a business. And when I started to look at the things that I was good at, I thought, no GCSEs, no qualifications, never went to college, haven't got a degree. Okay. What could I actually offer in terms of a business? And I just thought, well, I thought for months and months, what can I do? What can I do? And I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to iron people's clothes. So when I told my ex-partner at the time, who was my ex-husband, and I told my family, and I remember him more so, just laughed.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. So I didn't do anything for 6 months after that because it almost froze me to take an action.
Yeah.
Which I think happens a lot when we tell, and sometimes I think when we tell our closest people, they don't say it to be negative. They say it because they want to protect us.
Yeah, I get that.
On times.
Yeah.
Whereas actually what they do is not protect us.
Puts you the other way.
It puts you the other way. So I literally did nothing for about six to 9 months. And this idea was that I was going to bed and I was lying in bed and I could see it all. I could see me dropping iron off, picking up, going, morning, how are you? I actually played it out in my head as if I was doing it. But then I was going to my care job.
Yeah.
So I just thought, right, that's it. I rang my dad and it was Christmas time and I really struggled that year to buy the kids presents. And I just thought, that's it. If I don't do it now,
it's never going to happen.
And just exactly as you said, I had nothing to lose because I was on benefits.
Sure.
So what was the only thing, the worst that could have happened, it didn't work out and I had to get another job. So that's, well, when you look at the two situations, they're not really bad. I try and it failed. It fails and I get a job. So the risk... You're in
a win-win situation, really, aren't you? You know, at least you could sit there and say, actually, I gave it a go. I tried. Okay, it failed, but I did try. And it's amazing how people... do you think a lot of business owners or people that want to start an entrepreneurial journey suffer from letting the opinions of others stop them doing it?
Massively, massively. I think we are conditioned by society. I think we care sometimes so much about what is perceived on the outside world and what people think that we don't follow our heart. We don't follow our instincts. I'm not saying everybody, because there's a lot of people out there that will keep going until they find that one idea that transforms their life. But I think so many people never even step outside their comfort zone, never do anything to challenge themselves because it's, oh, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
What do you want to do that? Oh, that's a stupid idea. And you've got all of those people saying these things and then you end up going, actually, I won't do anything. I'll just stay the same. And then 10 years down the line, there's that regret. Yeah,
which you definitely don't want. I haven't had that. You know, you get naysayers all the time. You know, I find it more with friends and, you know, associates more than family. But it definitely does, like, especially when we started the social stuff. I was thinking, well, what are people going to say? They're going to think I'm stupid doing YouTube and things like that. But secretly, everyone then is messaging, asking, oh, how'd you do that? How'd you do this? So, you know, you've got to give these things a go. So you eventually plucked up the courage.
Yeah.
And started your ironing business from home? Yeah,
from the house. I had a tiny, tiny 3-bed terraced house. My living room turned into a laundrette. It was honestly, my iron and ironing board lived out of stairs. I still got the picture and I quite like looking at it because it just keeps you grounded when you look at stuff like that. My iron and ironing board was under the stairs. Then when I went into the cleaning, I had the smallest of desks from IKEA that you could buy because that's the only thing that would fit under the stairs. And I would be doing my admin, honest to God, under the stairs, doing my admin up on, you know, trying to figure out. I was terrible on the computer. Yeah. Excel spreadsheets. Even the basic Excel spreadsheets would scare the life out of me. And I'm thinking, what? So I, old-fashioned way, pen, book, £20, £50, £60, calculator, added it all up and things, you know. So I did things in the early stages. I did everything the long way around in the business, but it worked for me. That's what, you know, and I say that to people now. You don't need to have the best of everything from day one.
No, you're right.
Pen and paper's fine to start doing your maths and things. It's okay, and you know, and that's what worked for me. But yeah, from the house, I just reinvested all of the money, which allowed me to then purchase a £3,000 dual ironing system with a suction vacuum board, big boiler tank, which it was incredible. Yeah. Like, I got excited about ironing. Is that sad?
No, funny you say that. My mum, she is the same. She's got this ironing board. It's like a spaceship, honestly. It's got all these tanks. And so, no, I know people could get passionate about it. Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it until it started to break my body where my wrist, I would be ironing because the kids were little back then. The kids were 5 and 8.
Yeah.
So I I started the ironing. I quit my job in 4 months in care because I was earning enough to quit my care job and say, right, I'm going to do ironing full time. But then what happened was my ironing clients were saying, do you do house cleaning?
Okay.
And I thought, I don't.
Yeah.
But I can.
I do now.
Yeah, I don't, but I can. And then I was like, oh my God, I clean my house. But I think it's very different to taking somebody's clothes home and ironing them in my house than what it is going into somebody's private environment and cleaning their private items. And that was just a massive transition. But no, I absolutely loved the ironing, but I just knew that for me to scale the ironing, I would never have been able to have scaled the ironing like I did the cleaning because there's always that ceiling limit. If you've got a laundrette, there is a bit of a limit. You can have so many people come in, but if you've only got 5 machines and they're all full,
you can only do so much.
You can only do so much. Then you've got to open up another one, premises, overhead and things. So for me at the time, and I had no business acumen whatsoever, none. So I just thought, well, don't get a shop. Even though I did look into getting I did, yeah. I looked at getting a shop, priced it up, and the deal that I was offered at the time, I said no to it. So I was basically offered a deal that they'd fund the laundrette, they'd take 50% of the laundrette and 50% of my cleaning company.
Okay.
And I was like, I got a bit excited in the beginning and I thought, wait a minute, they want 50% of my ironing, the laundrette, which okay, if they're funding it, but they're not going to be working in the laundrette. And then they want 50% of my cleaning business, which I see that as
totally separate
to the laundrette. But they said, no, it's either all 50% of the whole business you build or nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I never, ever took that as an option because, I mean, the cleaning was small fry back then compared to what I built it to.
Yeah.
If I had done that, then I'd be in a, it'd
probably be a totally different scenario now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So the ironing's going well. You start going into domestic cleaning. Tough market, domestic cleaning, because like you alluded to a minute ago, when you're in a commercial environment, you're dealing with people. 1, it's not their money. 2, it's not their property. When you're in a domestic market, you're dealing with people's own money that they're giving you because it's, it's their spend, and you're in their personal environment. You like alluded to. Did you find that industry quite hard? The domestic market, because I think every cleaning entrepreneur generally goes to that market because it's quite easy to get into, but a lot of people move out of it, and I'm glad we did because of the reasons I've just gave. How did you find the domestic cleaning market?
Yeah, I think it's. I would say to anyone that it's a great starting point.
Yeah, great, totally.
Because it's low barrier to entry. What do you really need to, other than your image, which needs to be professional because you're dealing with people's. People need to trust you. The first thing is trust.
That's
You're turning up
thing, isn't it?
at somebody's house saying, yes, no worries, you'll be in work, I've got your front door key, off you go, goodbye, and they're out the door. That person that is using your services, trust is major. Now that becomes a lot more complicated when you've got domestic cleaning staff all over with keys and everything else. If the domestic cleaner phoned in sick on a Tuesday and they are very poorly, or they've been in a car accident, or they're in hospital, whatever that looks like, then how do you get in the client's house? You can't get into it. So if they've got 6 clients or 4 clients throughout that day, you can't even get into the client's house. So then you're cancelling, then you're letting people down.
Yeah.
You always I found growing and scaling a domestic business, even though we've done very well in that sector, to sustain that long term. And then you look at starting winning the commercial work. The commercial is far more viable because it's still challenging. It's by any means a tough industry. You still get sickness, you still get challenges. However, it's a lot more settled.
Yeah.
To the building doesn't really change. The building is the building, whereas in a domestic, I can't even begin to explain. It is very different. Same with hotel cleaning. I find hotel cleaning very different to your office, commercial, surgery. It's a complete different level of involvement that you have as a director, as an owner, as managers to operate that side of the business successfully. Yeah. Definitely a challenge.
How long was you in the domestic market?
Oh, years.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, from 2009 till around about maybe 2009 to 2017.
Oh, a long time then. Christ.
So yeah, it must have been around about 2017, I think, that we decided to whittle down the domestic.
Right.
Selling it wasn't really part of what I wanted to do because there's no contract. People are just buying goodwill.
Yeah.
And the chances are within, 12 months, they could lose all the clientele for one reason and another. Somebody lost their job, they cancel straight away. Commercial, you contracted. Yes, commercials can go into liquidation. However, the domestic can just drop
on a day.
Instantly.
Yeah.
So for me, morally, it just didn't sit. I wasn't selling anything. There was nothing tangible to say to somebody that we're selling this. Do you want to buy it? What's the guarantee? Well, there is none.
Yeah, they could literally all leave the next day, couldn't they? And probably come back over to you with another company. How did you? So what gave you that allure to start going in the commercial field? How did that journey start?
It just happened.
It does naturally, seems to, doesn't it?
It just naturally, very much like the iron and transition into domestic cleaning. And then I did the domestic and I realised that actually I can't scale the both, and the lucrative one would be the cleaning. So the ironing, I did sell it for pretty much not a huge profit, but all the equipment, the van and everything. So I sold, so I did sell the ironing on, but they were buying assets with that as well. So I sold the ironing on, and then we were just getting phone calls from offices, smaller offices, 2 hours a week, 2 hours once a fortnight. Even back then, you think, oh my God, 2 hours, you know, you do get excited. It's just that little buzz. And then you start to realize that, okay, this is going somewhere. This business has legs. Yeah. It now needs to start building strong foundations, which in the early years, it was just
get the job done.
Yeah. There was no systems, no processes, no strategy, no. It was just a case of, we've won work, lovely. We've won work, brilliant. Yeah. Let's get staff. We were just firefighting through growing.
I think, I say, it's interesting because we've literally gone without the ironing, same transition, same problems, 2 hours once a week, which we'd never even dream of touching now because it's just nearly impossible to prove. Was you very hands-on? Was you doing the cleaning yourself in the early days?
Yeah, and the middle days, and sometimes the later days. Yeah, I think, would I say I'm a bit of a, not control freak. I mean, I can't be that much of a control freak because when I sold, we had 358 staff. So, of course, I let things go. But I was so connected to my business that I would, over disappointing a client, I would go and do the clean myself. Yeah. So I was that passionate about it that if I had to go out at 4 a.m. to ensure that the client's premises were cleaned, or, if the management were overstretched because there was so much sickness, staff sickness, people quitting with no notice, it happens. And when you clean in a building, you are sometimes up against a certain time frame. Yeah. A lot of COVID slightly changed the dynamics of the cleaning industry, where some will allow daytime cleaning now, but previously, it was a case of no, cleaners out at 8 a.m. So you only got a small window. If they don't allow you to go in the evening because they don't want you to lock up the building for insurance purposes, you have to go in the morning. In between, maybe, you could go any time, but some of our premises were saying, well, you can't leave until there's a member of staff on site. So you're bound by... You're stuck there. By their time frames on some premises. So, it would see me working with the team a lot, going in, assisting them, supporting them, cleaning. And a part of me loved it because I think it allowed us to look at what was wrong in our business. If I go into sites, what's not working? Why is it not working? What can we do to fix it? Yeah. How do we become better? And I suppose those were the questions that I always asked myself is, if something's broke, how do we fix it? What's the solution? Because there is a solution for everything. Of course. You just need to be on site. I think when you grow as well and you've got a team of office staff, ops managers, supervisors, mobile staff, and then cleaners, when you've got those tiers in place, if sometimes it's so easy, it can be so easy to lose the connection between the staff that's out on the road every day, and then you've got a team of office people sat there going, we've just changed, this is what we're going to do. Mm. And then they tell the cleaner staff and the cleaners go, that's never going to work. Yep. Yep. We made an executive decision in the office. That's the new plan. And the cleaners are going, who's making these decisions? And you hear of that in companies, and it's exactly the same. So for me, it was important that I I never got to the point where we were too big that we just didn't care. Our staff were our eyes and ears. So that level of interaction and connection was important for me.
You stayed down there. So you moved into the commercial. Did you call it Always Responsive straight away? Was that the name straight away?
No, it was A&R.
Okay. So I remember actually, yeah.
Ashley and Rayner. So couldn't quite think of a name. So we thought, well...
Same as us, JCD, James, Chris and Don, similar.
I think it's the done thing, isn't it? I'll let you know. It was just... although my very first business was called The Iron Lady, then I did call myself Rayner's Domestic Cleaning.
Okay.
And then it quickly went into A&R. When Ashley came on board in 2010, it was A&R. So, and then they've just rebranded to Always Responsive.
Yeah, that's what I've got on my note. So you've started a commercial cleaning company. Tell us a little bit about that growth journey, because you've gone from literally ironing clothes in your domestic property to just under 4.5 million in revenue, which is some going. I mean, we're just under 2 million at the moment and struggling to get beyond that. I know that takes some growth. So take us through that journey of growing A&R. As briefly as you can.
Difficult. I think...
I don't think people understand how difficult it is to scale a cleaning company that big.
There's, for every phase of growth we went through, the new challenges, when we thought, right, we've got to that point, the new challenges that presented themselves at that level were almost just like looking at Everest. Every time was like looking at Everest going, what, we've really got to climb that mountain again. We've really got to climb that mountain. And what you tend to find, what we found, is some of the staff in the earlier years are amazing. Yeah. But as you scale and grow a business, sometimes the business dynamics, the operations, the systems and processes, the way that you have to basically have your business mapped out and on a plan and all the boxes ticked for every area of your business, from recruitment, taking on new work, 2P, dealing with 2P is a big thing. You know, there's regulations you've got to follow. There's the pension card. Every single thing in your business has to have its own checkbox. Yeah. So when you grow, your paperwork grows, your system grows, your processes grow, and it's overwhelming. It's very, very, very overwhelming for a lot of people, and they almost say, I can't continue on that journey with you.
They haven't got the perseverance to stick with it.
Yeah. Whereas as a business owner,
you ain't got a choice.
You even though it's you driving the business forward, you ain't got a choice, because, well, I lie. I could have thrown the towel in there were so many times I would get home and say, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. To only have a member of staff who is sick and I'm there 5 o'clock in the morning helping the staff clean a school. Yeah. Every phase of growth for us was a massive mammoth buzz, excitement, challenge. But then you'd go again.
Yeah. What was the hardest phase, would you say? Obviously, you got that. I mean, you know, I see it. You've got that early stage, 0 to 1 million. And I think from 2 million to anything above that, I think that's sort of where we are. We're finding that quite tough. And I find the business needs some more investment in terms of management, processes and things like that. You know, you can get quite far with a pen and paper, like you alluded to at the start. Which part did you find the toughest, the most draining?
The most draining, I would say... Personally, for me, the most draining was probably startup to 2018. Okay. So before, we were still doing a lot of domestic, we were doing carpet cleaning. The management and involvement every minute of every day was just relentless.
Non-stop, isn't it? Yeah.
And because I was heavily involved and I cared so much, I think it all comes back down to I just cared so much. I just loved my business so much that I put my business over my family, over my children. I was, my business was my life.
I get that.
I was so committed to it being a success. So maybe on times I put that extra pressure on myself. Okay. Because if it's not going to get done, I'll do it myself. Yeah. And that's how I was. On reflection, there's a lot of things I wouldn't do. Okay. I've definitely learned a lot of lessons now.
Give me some.
I think learning to let go earlier. Massive is a big thing.
How did you find that letting go? I mean, this is like a personal therapy session for me as well, this podcast, because I'm speaking with owners that have done what I would hope and want to achieve. So tell me, how did you let go? Because it's hard, right? Because in the cleaning industry, you alluded to it, you get a manager in, you think, right, this person's really going to do that. And you let them task go. And then actually 3 months down the line, you realize they haven't done what you expected to do. So it's tough, right? And you get burnt a few times. So tell me, how did you end up letting go?
Yeah, I think with that, what you tend to see is, like, I'll allude to the iceberg. So you can see what the manager's doing on the top. Yep. They look amazing. They, life is amazing. Yeah, I've been to see that client. Yeah, also everything's in hand. What you don't see is when things start to fall apart, is all the mess that they've left underneath, because some managers, that's all they did was lit mask over everything, and they were so good at masking over things. And every time you get burned by a manager or a supervisor, or we've had cleaning staff leave and take clients with them, every time you get burned, it scars you a little bit. So that trust, it's difficult, because then you say, well, I have to let go. I have to trust people, but I don't trust anyone. Yeah. So how am I going to grow a business when I don't trust people?
I think that goes back to then the recruitment phase, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was very hot on, I was very big on, and I don't know where a lot of it came from. I've spent hours and hours, thousands of hours studying, learning entrepreneurship, studying principles and things. I'm a bit of a, I wouldn't say geek, but I love learning. I just learn all the time. And for me, it was always about the foundations of the business. For the business to be successful, and I used to, show a building when I do public talks and things. I'd show a building where the building looks amazing, but because the foundations have sunk, the building's now on a wonk. Yeah. And there's no point taking your business like a Lego block of Legos. There's no point stacking on top if it's so weak at the bottom. Yeah. You've got to fix that first before you grow. So, and I did a post on LinkedIn the other week, and it was about, if you're scaling your business and your staff are not on board, stop. What's the point? You're scaling, or you think you're scaling, but then you've just lost 15 clients because you haven't looked after them. Yeah. But you've won 10. Sure. So it's false economy. You're not really growing. Yeah. How about looking after the ones that you've got now? Yeah. Nurture them, build the strong foundations, and then move on to the next level.
I use the analogy of like a leaky bucket. So, if you've got a bucket, it's all well and good trying to constantly fill the bucket from the top. But if you've got various holes in the bottom and you're leaking stuff out, i.e. client retention out the bottom, it's a never-ending cycle, and you're just never going to get through that. So you've got to fix the cause at the bottom. And what we found, I don't know if you found this during your scale up, sometimes you've got to take a little pause and a little step back and just reassess the situation to then go forward again. And we found ourselves in that situation a few times. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I was the type of leader in my organisation where it wasn't a case of tell and do. So I would come up with an idea, say to the staff, that's what you do, and off you go and do it. It was very much a team effort. Yep. So we would regularly look at the pestle analysis. So external factors that would affect our business. We would regularly do SWOT analysis. Yep. So we would look at, what are the current strengths in the business, and even identifying key people. So it's not just what's the strength of the business is, what's the strength of the people within the business? Because there's no point asking somebody to do something if they've just said to you, that's my weakness. So if somebody said to me, right, you're now doing payroll and accounts, but it's been identified as my weakness.
I'm no good at numbers.
It'd almost be, well, why? So you're not in alignment with where the business is going, and you haven't got, another thing he used to say is you're having the right people on the right seats on the bus. Yeah. And that's really important, that you constantly evaluate that with your team. You might know or see it with your staff. If they're having a tough time at home, or the children are ill or anything, that will 100% have a rippling effect on the business and the work that they're performing. So if you can be the type of leader in your organisation that sits with your staff and communicates and listens to your staff and understands what's going on, if you can offer them any assistance or support, they'll give that back to your company tenfold, time and time and time again. It doesn't keep people and stop people from leaving. However, if the job's not for them, the job's not for them, because managers don't work 8 till 5. Their phone might ring at 5 o'clock. I'm not coming in today. I've got a sickness bug. That's the reality of the industry they work in. But then it's knowing that they've got a director of a company that cares enough that they'll sit and go, how are you feeling? Yeah. What does life look like for you this month? And they might say, absolutely shit. And then we'd have the employee assistance program. So again, all the way through our phases of growth, it was always about how do we nurture the staff? How do we look after the staff? How do we scale? Well, I see our relationship as a marriage. Essentially, I don't get into bed with you at the end of the night, but I see it as a marriage. You've got a wife. You don't just go home one day and say to your wife, look, Lev, it's not working.
Yeah, I'm off.
It's not the done thing. You sit down and talk and communicate and say, this is what's not right.
Yeah.
This is what I think we need to do to fix it.
Yeah.
Can we try and work together for the next 3 months and see how it is?
Yeah.
All right, you wouldn't quite in your marriage be that formal. I don't think you would. Might be a bit of screaming and shouting, but in a business relationship, for me, that's what relationships were in. I had an excellent relationship with my customers.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you know, it's without the customers, you ain't got a business anyway.
Yeah.
It made me realize that everybody is different.
Yeah.
One client might want to see you once a week. Another client might say, don't even come on the premises unless there's a problem.
I get that.
Another client might say, no, I want monthly walk-arounds and I want to do the walk-arounds with you. So you can't have one fit for every single client in your business. And then if you've got 6 managers, that's got to be filtered through to 6 managers, 250 sites. So the ripple effect on all of that is constantly educating, learning.
It's hard when you scale that big, isn't it, to keep touch with all the individual sites. So did you have a big management structure?
We had, I think it was about 5 managers, 1 ops manager. We had our office manager, administrator in the office, and then marketing, and somebody that solely focused on recruitment.
Got you.
So the way it normally works in the cleaning sector is the managers look after recruitment, payroll, staff onboarding, staff training, chemicals, stock, looking at the budget of the site, how much they've spent, staff return, everything.
Yeah. We've said on a couple of occasions now, it's a tough industry to be in, no matter how good your company culture is, and everyone shouts about company culture. It is a cutthroat industry in terms of management, and it's tough, right? Like you've alluded to, there's no one size fits all. So you've got a different solution for different customers. Customers handle things different ways. You know, one customer, you know, a bin's missed. Literally, it's the end of the world, isn't it? Some of them, of them are a little bit more, you know,
don't worry.
They're not so bothered. So you've got so many different relationships to manage. And as a founder and CEO, that's super difficult, isn't it? Because you're managing personalities, managers, cleaning staff, customers, everyone else in between. So it is, you know, a high stress environment, and you're going to get that natural turn. I don't think you're ever going to avoid that, are you?
I don't think it's always about the money. I genuinely don't think it's always about the money, even though the money helps.
Yeah.
It is sometimes about what does the life of the job look like. And I think anybody running a cleaning company with a higher level management team, if they are the higher level management team and there's nobody below them in management or senior management or anything, that level of management will, I think it's inevitable where there's a churn, because when I say shit hits the fan, where does that go? Who picks that mess up? It's the managers, you know? So, and if it's not the managers, it was me, because the ops manager didn't really get promoted until the last year before the sale. Yeah. So it was basically finance director, managing director or CEO and ops manager a year in. Okay. But before that year, up until 2020, it was managers me, managers finance director. So there was no
middle management there.
No.
All to you. You built your company, you know, to 4.5 million, and then you exited. Obviously, during that, you know, we can't cover every aspect of that journey because we haven't got enough time as much as we'd love to. There's many highs and lows during entrepreneurship. You know, probably more lows than there is highs. That's the general truth and what people don't understand. Is there any particular low point within that journey that you can recall and share with us?
To the point of sale. To the point of sale, several. I think the toughest time for me was actually just before COVID. There was a lot of personal stuff going on as well. So I was running the business with my ex-husband. Yeah. And it's very difficult to distinguish what is an argument over somebody hasn't changed the toilet roll in the house, over losing a client or winning a client, or staff not being happy or staff being happy. At what point Was the marriage a marriage and the business a business?
I suppose my wife isn't in the business and I'm pleased, but I do have family in the business. And I think we're pretty good with separating. But then again, I can imagine if it's, husband, wife. The work. I suppose there's no, unless you've got real good lines that most, reality is most people are not going to be able to have. You're at work non-stop, effectively, aren't you?
Yeah. And I think the point where I took, I've battled with mental health from maybe, I think it was 17, 18, I was first prescribed medication for mental health. And I'm quite open and honest about my mental health journey through my raising my children and also growing a business as well. I'm quite open and honest about that because I think it's important that people see the reality, the full spectrum of what a life looks like, not just 5% of the pie where everything is amazing all the time. It's a false world. Social media can be a very much false world, and people allude to the fact that you're amazing, you've got everything, you're so happy, and then you close the door and you're in your dressing room bawling your eyes out. How many people show that side of life, running a business, whether they're in a stressful job? It doesn't matter where. And I think for me it's always about being realistic and showing that I'm vulnerable as well. I think the hardest point for me was we were just going through a tough time, business growth, which was amazing because we were growing as a business. What are we doing wrong? What can we do to fix it? And I just sat in the office and I said, oh my God, I am either going to have to jump on an airplane or I feel like I'm going to jump off a cliff. And it was very real for me. It was like, that was 2019. And I literally sat in the office, I phoned a travel agent and I said, this is the budget. I just want somewhere where there's hardly nothing around, not too far. And that I went home, packed a bag. I left at 2:00 in the morning to go to Birmingham Airport and I flew to a place called Costa Calma. And prior to that, I wasn't so much, but I'm very much I'm in touch with my spiritual side now. I believe a lot of the things that's happened in my life, I've manifested.
You beat me to the punch there. I was going to say about your ironing business when you said you were sitting there and you were thinking about it at night. That's manifestation, isn't it?
Yeah, and I believe a lot of the good stuff in my life and the bad stuff I've manifested.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I genuinely, people might listen to this and go, oh, I think she's a bit crazy, but I'm not. I genuinely believe that a lot of the things, and I went to a place called Costa Calma and I bought this little angel and I went up to the shop. And then as the months went on, the story almost unfolded to what was going on in my personal life. I was in a place called Costa Calma. It was the place that I kind of felt the most connected with myself as a human.
Okay.
And then that was a journey for me. And that was probably the toughest point in my life personally and
in business,
that they both were just not in a great place. And I didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of stick for being open and I did a video on the beach and I said, I've taken myself away. And some people were like, oh, well, count your blessings. Not everyone can book a flight and run away within 24 hours. And I thought, well, okay, but are you in my life, in my position? Crack on, go and start a business, have a go. You're working 20 hours a week for somebody else, which is fine. If that's what people want to do, that's fine. But then don't criticize my life when I'm working 16, 18 hours, building my business. Yes, my life looks very different because I'm working very different to you. I'm living life very different to you. But the stress on that. But I think I've definitely, over the last few years, just learned to say to people, do you know what? That's your opinion.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. I used to hold on to that massively. People's opinions affected me hugely, whereas now I've just let it all go.
Yeah. How did you get over that tough time? Was that stepping away? So
it was only 5 days, but it was 5 days of non-stop, no alcohol, worked on myself every day, went to the gym, running on the beach, and I did hours and hours and hours of listening to Tony Robbins. Everything he was saying on all his videos, I was doing. I was reflecting on what's good in my life, what's not good in my life. What am I saying to myself? So what thoughts are in my mind? So it could be, I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. Because that came up back then. So I carried that from having my son right up until that point. And So I just did a lot of work on me, writing every day, wrote myself stories and what life's going to look like in 10 years as if I was living it, manifest. I just spent every minute of every day while I was out there eating healthy, looking after myself, and it just gave me a complete, just having that escapism, almost running away from the world.
Yeah, sometimes you need it though.
I remember my mum and sister rang me when I was on the bus the other side, and I was like, what have I done? And I got in there, I remember getting into the room, and I spent an hour on the floor crying, just literally spent an hour in the room, and I just sobbed my out, and I thought, I've just left my husband and my 2 kids in the house to run the business, and I've just come, but I for me, I had to.
Yeah.
But I look back on that now and I think, do you know what? That's not a bad thing.
No.
If somebody needs to go away or have space, why not?
Yeah.
How many people, I watched the Tyson Fury documentary the other week. What does he do for 8 weeks to get him in the best fit state mentally and emotionally and geared up? They remove themselves from
his family scenario, the day-to-day.
Yeah. And whereas that was deemed as negative. I had so many comments on Facebook from certain people saying, oh, you're lucky you could just run away. All of us are still here having to deal with the kids. And I was like, okay.
I think
thanks for the support.
Yeah, one, it separates from who is truly behind you and who's not. And two, as I say, people are always going to have their opinions, aren't they? You're never going to get over that. It sounds like a tough time. You're obviously out the other side of that now. On the flip side of that, during your time with A&R, is there any real positive memories that you look back on?
Oh, loads.
Any standout ones?
I think not just winning clients, not just winning work, but knowing that month after month, the feedback is good, the satisfaction's where it needs to be. And if it wasn't, how did we deal with it as a company? What does that actually look like? It was the way I felt that I would look after the staff. So I was because of my mental health and my challenges, it was really important that I took the time. I got quite a few staff that I knew they'd be very honest with me struggling. They'd be sat in my office crying, or they'd text me and just say, look, any chance we could have a chat? And I'd take them out to a coffee shop and just giving my time to my staff. My staff were never, ever a number to me. They were real people with real issues, heart, emotion, brain, good times, bad times. They were real people. Yeah. And just that buzz of every day, whilst it was challenging, whilst it was difficult, just the buzz of every day getting up, knowing that we're making a difference, we're growing a business, we're giving people opportunities. And I remember I said to 2 of my senior management that I said, look, I don't even know how, but I just need you to trust me that if you come on this journey with us, I promise you'll be looked after. I probably said it to them at least once a month for about 4 years. And I didn't have a clue. I genuinely didn't, even though I knew we were growing the business, I didn't know what that was going to look like. I said, just trust me and coming on the journey with me. Don't get me wrong, I think they both handed their notice in quite a few times and retracted it.
Happens.
And they come on the journey with us. And then the 2 of them became 10% shareholders when I sold.
Okay.
So that's life-changing for them. They became directors and 10% shareholders of a multi-million-pound company. Mm-hmm. So my promise, for me, that's deep-rooted to who I am as a person, is what I say is true. And I'm just glad that they put trust in me to take them on that journey, because it's not just changed my life and clients' lives and my children's lives and our staff's lives. It's changed. It's like my staff helped change their lives as well. Everyone, for me, we're on this journey. Yeah. Whilst I couldn't do it for all my staff, and I couldn't say to all of them, use a piece of the pie, you just can't do it. But I think that's probably one of the proud moments that I'll take away, is that I didn't just change mine and my kids' lives and my customers' lives. I helped change 2 of my staff's lives by creating generational sort of or future wealth for them when they go to sell their shares.
That's definitely something to be proud of, isn't it? So you alluded to there about sell, exit. What was that process like? Tell me a little bit about that.
Do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to lie?
100% honest.
Whatever
you're comfortable sharing with.
Yeah. My goodness. Selling a business, especially through management buyout. I think if it's a trade sale, you're all on that trade sale bus together. So everything is geared up towards the sale of a business. And effectively, as a team, you're all working towards a goal that is on everyone's horizon.
Yeah.
So you all know where you're going. So we're going from A to B, lovely. We're all on the journey, brilliant, let's go there. With a management buyout.
So management buyout is effectively one business partner buying out the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
And then 2 senior staff were part of that. Sometimes, senior level management or other people in the business don't get the opportunity to be offered the management buyout, but we offered it to 2 of our staff. Okay. Yep. So 2 staff and my ex-husband. So it was almost like you imagine a Y, and we're in the beginning, we're on the up of the Y, so we're all going same journey, and all of a sudden it forks off.
Yep.
And it's almost they want the best for the business, which is understandable. Yep. At the end of the day, the business still got to continue to run afterwards. So they're all fighting, not literally fighting. Few arguments along the way. They're all geared. They have an objective, which is to have the best interest of the business. How do they move forward? Mm-hmm. And I'm on the other part of the Y, which has gone to the right. So they've gone left. So we've gone on the journey together to a certain point. And then for about 5 months after that, they went left and I went right. Yeah. And it was hard. It was emotionally, that's probably I would say that like over the time when I ran away, that was a very tough moment in my life, because I wasn't just losing my core people around me who were my team for years. I couldn't tell anyone. Nobody knew. None of our other staff knew. There was that tension, which I think on reflection, looking back, 100% tension. My husband was with the 2 managers as part of the MBO. I was over there on my own, and it was a lonely, lonely place. And then during the MBO, he left the marriage in the October and the deal went through in December. So finding out your husband's leaving and dealing with selling a business, I nearly pulled out of the deal. So just diversifying a little bit. But I've enjoyed it. It doesn't give me the satisfaction that the cleaning industry does. Okay. No.
That's interesting. I always think to myself, if I stepped away from the industry, I'd probably be glad of it. But like you say, you easily get drawn back in, because like you alluded to earlier, where you have them days where you come home, you go, right, that's enough. I have that as well. I have several of them. I go home and say to my wife, that's it. I've really had enough. I'm going to step back and do something. And then 2 weeks later, I find myself, we've won a new contract, whatever, and then you're back in the throes of,
Does she understand that though? Or does she just
probably not.
Just leave you get on with it?
I think, from an outsider, unless you've really been in the industry and, been at a good level, there's nothing better than, when you win a big client, a big commercial client, there's nothing better than that. And I think people that are not in the industry probably don't understand that, do they?
I know one's a friend and the other one I know through business, different industry sectors, but they've sold their business and they've gone through a couple of stuff. Done a few things, tried a few different things, and the both of them now are back after their non-compete, running starting the same businesses that what they sold. And I think that's the same in any industry. If you love it and you're passionate about it, you go back to it. It's something that, and then they say now, Don't go back in. Stay out. And I'm, well, you've gone back in. There's that pull. It's the pull, isn't it? I think it's the pull and the excitement of knowing. I think once you've, I feel the way that my business grew was I was in the trenches. I felt I was in the trenches more than there was moments of buzz and moments of, the award does amazing. 4 year? The trenches, Monday to Friday or Saturday to Sunday, they're there all the time. And I think, but I've learned so many things about what I did, what I was like. And it's like the bird's eye view. I don't think you actually take the time as a owner to step out to your business and go, where's the business going? What does it look like? You have a strategy, you plan your strategy. Next year, we're aiming for this. Great. That's the plan for the business. But how often do you step back like the bird's eye view and go, where am I focusing my energy? What tasks am I doing? £10 tasks, £100 tasks. And sometimes you end up spending so much time doing the £10 tasks that you're bogged down all the time. And I think I've learned so many lessons that would be complete. If I was ever to go back into it, I say if, If I was, there's no plans, but I do have plans to work with other companies, doing consultancy, coaching, mentoring, training programs, online courses, click and buy documents. So they'll be able to just have contracts or KPIs and things like that. So I'm in the process of creating all of them now.
Yeah.
I think I want to give it a go at assisting other cleaning companies to get up to the trenches and grow.
It's hard when you're, like you say, when you're in that constantly, it is hard to come out and actually see the bigger picture. And you've got to drag yourself out of that. Sometimes maybe by taking yourself away, like you did in different scenario, obviously, taking yourself away and actually spending time and saying, actually, where is this going? You need to do that. But it's easier said than done when you're literally, like you say, you feel like you're at war every day. Yeah. I was going to ask you what's next for Rayner, but you've just gave me a little insight into that. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. What's next? I'm really excited. I'm probably in the best place now that I feel I've been in. And
you look happy.
Yeah, some people say to me, is going into another business the right thing to do then? I thought, well, I possibly couldn't go and work for anyone else. I think I'd be a nightmare to employees and employers, I think. For me, I've always loved helping others, whether that's in my business, whether that's fundraising. I've raised over 50,000 for charities. I've give back. I've donated so much from A&R, from Always Responsive, from the business. For me, helping people has always been deep-rooted.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I was meant to have kids young, but I believe I was meant to have kids young. I brought 2 kids into the world who were amazing children. And I've always helped others in the care industry, ironing, taking a load of other people's minds, giving them their weekends back. It's always been about helping others. So I think for me, I need to give the new business a go. I need to see whether it fits in line with, it feeds my passion, if it makes me feel excited. And yes, all about helping other business owners, helping them implement strategies, helping them take them out of the day-to-day and creating that vision. What does the business look like in 12 months? Maybe not so focused on the 5 years, because 5 years, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's a long time in the cleaning industry.
Focusing on, what does it look like, reverse engineering. So, this is what the vision looks like. We want to get to 5 million or 3 million, or we want, even the smaller companies, I want 20 staff. Might only have 3 now.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What do you need? Working out the cost, the finances, what type of clients, your ideal clients. So really working with business owners and getting them to take their business to the next level if that's where they want to go, and showing them that it can be done. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But it's also worth it, because I was 36 when I sold. I changed my life, changed my kids' lives, and other people can do that as well.
Yeah. The parting question that we always ask to everyone that sits with us is, for anyone that's watching along, what would be your number one bit of advice for anyone that's in a business at the moment or looking to get into business? What would be your parting comment be? And that could be from a personal perspective, it could be from business, whatever. What would you tell your younger self? What would the one piece of advice you would give?
My younger self. So I think a lot of people go into businesses, whether that's partnership, joint ventures or whatever. And even now with a property, I've learned a few lessons. I think sometimes there's a lot of naivety when you get carried away with the excitement. So, if I said, oh, we're gonna set up a business and it's gonna be £1 million turnover, and you're both literally ping, you've got this. And then what you tend to forget is that through tough times and hard times, things can change.
Yep.
If you don't have the right paperwork and contracts in place that protect you and protect the other potential owner or joint venture, whatever that looks like, it can come back and bite you in the arse. So I think the first thing I would say is, as exciting as it is to go into business with somebody, make sure you've got the right T's and C's. What does that look like? And think, because if you're giving, 50% away of something that is yours and you end up working 90% more than, or 80% or 50% or whatever that looks like, it's not really a fair deal then, is it?
No.
So, do I believe in work hard, work smart, not hard? Well, sometimes I think that's, I would say bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
And, it's not really always about working smart versus working hard. It does boil down to that, because I've learned so much. There's so many things I would do differently.
Yeah.
But that's strategy, implementing processes, systems. I don't think it matters how many systems and processes your business got. There will be tough times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the biggest lesson is, just making sure you've got all the paperwork from day one, so there's no ambiguity, you know what's what, it's laid out, cards on the table. And secondly, just don't listen to the naysayers, because no matter what stage of growth you go through, there'll always be people that will champion you and go, well done, amazing. And there'll always be people that say, do you really want to grow? Do you really want to do that? What are you doing that for? What about that? And that can put doubt in your mind. I would just say the sooner you learn to let that go, and the sooner you learn to let go of any negative voices you have in your head, the sooner you learn to let go of them, the better. Yep. And one thing I combat that is, call me crazy again, a negative thought will come into my head. And I could be sat talking to somebody and I'm challenging that negative thought in my own head. Yeah. And the book that's really helped me is The Chimp Paradox.
Yeah, I've read it.
Have you read it?
I have.
I think I had to listen to it twice to understand it, because it's quite for me, it was quite a complex book, because I said earlier on, school wasn't my biggest thing, and understanding, and I think if I was tested for something, I think something along ADHD or whatever would be, because I spell things backwards all the time, or dyslexia, whatever, and that's not labeling anything, but I think that would answer some of the things that I've had to listen to a book 2, 3, 4 times to be able to understand it. But that book helped me, because it made me realise that we've all got this little chimp in our brain, and how do we control it?
I'm
feed it a banana.
I'm guilty of that. You doubt yourself, and then you get other people's opinions playing into that, both positive and negative, and it's hard to actually go, no, actually I'm not this, I'm that. And I think you're a clear example of that. From doubting yourself from a very early age to building a fantastic business, being in property, and what you've got going on. It only shows that if you've got a belief in yourself and you visualize it and you actually put the hard work in, there's no taking out that hard work. There's no quick, shortcut. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve, and you're a shining example of that. And I say you look happy now as well, so which is good. I've followed you along for some time on LinkedIn, so I've seen your journey as you've gone on. And I say you look like you're in a great place, and it's a fantastic story. And I'm so pleased that we managed to come down and spend some time with you today. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's no problem. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Cleaning Up Business podcast. Thank you again for having us down in Wales. Where can people find you moving forward if they want to? LinkedIn, is that the best place to find you?
LinkedIn, Rayner Mayers on LinkedIn. I've got a brand new website, which is going to be launching. The aim is February the 1st. So brand new website where it'll have all the courses, the click and buy documents. Yep. So just online. LinkedIn will have everything on there. So in the process of creating a link tree as well, so people can look at all the accreditations, the awards, sometimes the nice stories and the not so nice stories, and just mainly through online, LinkedIn, and then the website in February.
Perfect. Right, Rayner, thank you for having us again today. As always, guys, hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube, and if you're following along on your podcast platform, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe to that as well. So that wraps up another episode from Wales, and we will see you in the next bi-weekly episode.